warned you, maybe that's not the wrong word, that we will be meditating for half an hour, but because it is a guided meditation, it's actually quite easy and quite nice. And people usually say, oh, the time's already gone, and I haven't realized it was half an hour. But please, if it is something new and the stretch of time is a bit long for you, go gently. If you need to, move your bodies, or if you need to open your eyes and just look around in the room a little bit, if it's uncomfortable for you to sit with closed eyes and in a room which is silent, please do so, whatever is needed. So I usually pick a little bit of a topic to give myself an idea and to gather a few ideas before I come here. And what came up for me is the title of Calming the Senses. And what does that mean in Buddhism, but what does it specifically mean also for meditation? I try to bring in meditation, but then also bring in, the day-to-day activities, because these two things go together. I often stress that the mind we have in meditation is the same mind that we have in day-to-day life. So we can't just sit down here and then think, it's just kind of a switch and now suddenly a completely different mind starts operating. But it also works the other way around. So what we are practicing, what we are learning, what we are teaching our minds in meditation will help us in our day-to-day lives. So with the senses, probably we have someone who is a bit younger there. I remember I was a primary school teacher myself, so the 5 senses is usually one of those kind of big topics at primary school. I don't know if here in Australia, but in Switzerland definitely it was. So our 5 senses would be our eyes, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and then touching. And that includes not just our hands, but just the whole kind of feeling of experiencing the world through touch. And these 5 senses are basically here for us to make sense of the outside world. Maybe that's why the word is actually called 5 senses, I'm not sure. But to understand, to grasp, to get in touch with what is happening around us. Now, in Buddhism, we don't just talk about 5 senses. In Buddhism, we talk about 6 senses. And the 6th sense is the mind, or the heart. And all that information that we're getting from the world out there, that goes into our mind, that goes into our heart. And then we talk about this thing of perception. So the mind is what perceives all those kind of things. The mind is what makes sense out of all that information that flows into us. And so the 5 senses basically help us to orient ourselves in the world out there and to also navigate in the world out there. One of the important things we need to understand is also that it's kind of like an alert system. So a lot of our senses actually have to do with a sense of safety or with a sense of fear as well. So they are alerting us that something is happening out there that needs our attention and that we need to kind of respond in certain ways. Now, one of the problems is that depending on what our mind state is, depending what our heart is doing, depending how we are feeling, we will interpret the information that is coming in. And then sometimes we might actually get it wrong. Or we might overreact to certain things, or just not actually perceive what is out there. Because perception is a tricky thing. Perception is one thing that we have learned over a long period of time. So that's what we call conditioning in Buddhism. So it's something which is conditioned. Something which also brings up old memories from our past, which brings up old experiences that we had. And then we will be seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching the world with that kind of information that comes out of our minds. So, that is a little bit of an introduction to how those senses work. Now, even though if the information from the outside is kind of useful or important to us, or even valuable, it is important that we realize that we have to be careful. And I think that's probably in the age of social media and of being bombarded with so many, things from the outside. I think we've heard that before as well. Because if we just blindly trust and we blindly follow whatever comes in from the outside, and especially if we get caught up in it, if we get overwhelmed by it, then that can create unbeneficial, unhelpful mind states. And then that, of course, again, is kind of coloring our perception of all that information that is coming in. So we can also get hijacked by all these kind of things. We can get manipulated by these things, and we can have biases that start to work, and basically wrong views, as we call them in Buddhism. And then we start to proliferate in all sorts of ways, thinking about things, ruminating about things that is unhelpful. And then we can get overwhelmed, we can get lost. And the reaction that comes out of that very often is that we overreact to things out there that don't actually need that response from us. And we just respond in inappropriate ways. So now how can we handle that in a way that doesn't happen? And that's this kind of idea of calming the senses. Because if you calm your mind, then you will also calm all that information that comes in through your senses. And basically, if the mind is the thing which receives everything, that is a really crucial thing in the whole relationship here. And the Buddha teaches us that if the mind is in 4 states, then we have to be very, very careful, either to make decisions or to act upon certain things. And those 4 things that we have to be careful about is when we have a strong desire in our mind, when we have like an idea of favoring something or longing for something very, very strongly, then we have to be careful. If we have hatred in our heart or aversion in our heart, which colors our perception, then we also have to be very, very careful. Because what comes out in our speech and in our actions, triggered by that information that comes in, can lead us basically down the wrong track. Then the third one is delusion or confusion. If that is present in the mind, there is no clarity. And the last one is fear. So fear is important for us to inform us something is happening, needs our attention. Sometimes we see something and go like, oh, okay, now I have to run away or get out of the situation. But if we have like anxiety or a fear which is in our mind constantly, then all the information that is coming in is colored by that mind state. And that's why we will react or do things in a way which is not so helpful. So these things will cloud our hearts and cloud our discernment, our understanding, our ability to basically do the right thing at the right time. So we lose our discernment and we will basically go astray. So now if we want to make sure that that is not happening, it's very good to have some kind of questions with you that you can ask yourself in your day-to-day life. So maybe that was a bit theoretical, what I said so far, but I mean, as I said, we've been bombarded with things in the media, we hear things from other people, we see things out in the world. And now, how do you actually do that? Not blindly believe what comes in. So you check what is happening in your own heart. You check where you're at internally. So you first just ask yourself, what is actually happening in my mind? What's happening in my heart? What's happening with my feelings? What is my mind state? And how might that be coloring the information that is coming in? Then we also ask ourselves, what is our attitude? What is our motivation? And that basically means, where are we coming from when we start to respond, when we start to talk, when we start to act? What is the intention? That's the other one. What is the attitude or the motivation that we bring to this? So where are we coming from? And then the other part is, What is the aim or what is the intention? So where are we aiming at? What are we trying to achieve with what is going to happen as a reaction? So where are we coming from? What are the mind states within us? And where are we kind of heading? What's the goal? What's the aim? That could basically be summarized in what is the mind inclining towards. And I really kind of like this word inclining. I think in German it's actually the same. I'm a German speaker, if you haven't heard from my accent already, but I've been living here for about 15 years now. But in German it's also Neigung, which means you are kind of inclining towards something. So if you incline towards something, you want to make sure that what you're inclining towards is actually something helpful, it's something beneficial, it's something which energizes you, which gives you some positive energy. And if that's not the case, then you should decline it. And that's kind of the opposite for me of inclining to something. If you don't want something, or if you turn away from something, you basically decline it. So you decline, the word we often use as well in Buddhism is renouncing. It's a very beautiful word, just to say no, to turn away, to walk away. We don't have to expose ourselves to all these things out in the world. Sometimes we realize when we watch something, when we read something, when we are with certain people, that the energy kind of changes within, and it's not the best environment for us to be in. So then it's good to politely, kindly decline, to renounce, and to let go of these kind of things that create trouble in our heart, that basically create clouds like bad weather in our mind, which we want to take care of. And that usually happens when we are too involved in the five sense world. So the five senses I talked about, and the world they want to go out to and grab things or possess things or bring things in. That kind of energy is something which is actually quite unsettling if we start to become a bit more sensitive to these things inside. So if we have strong desires for things outside, that actually creates this kind of bad weather in our heart, if you want to call it. And then other things that probably are hopefully quite clear to you, if you have ill will that forms in your heart, it's something which is unpleasant, which is heavy, which is hot. It can kind of generate a bit of energy if we're kind of angry or something like that, but it's not a nice, helpful energy. And then, of course, if we have even thoughts of cruelty, that might come up in our hearts. So that's the things we don't incline to. We incline away from, we decline. But then we also want to make sure that we actually devote ourselves, that we apply ourselves, and that we commit ourselves to the things which are the opposite of that, which calm the senses, which still the senses, which energize the senses. And probably one of the things that I often bring up is when you are sitting on a bench in a forest somewhere and you are just watching nature, or you see the sun go down, or you see the sun come up, or I was just in Christmas Island recently for 2.5 weeks to do a bit of teaching there, and it was the crab season, and just seeing all those crabs and the birds and whatever it is. Even though your senses are active, even though you're seeing, you're hearing, you might even perceive with your touch some of the weather that's going on, or the wind, or the sun on your skin, it's something which doesn't irritate your senses. It doesn't draw you out. It balances you, it calms you, it settles you. And that's the kind of things that we are after, that we should actually be encouraging, that we should devote ourselves to. And these are the things that have to do with renunciation. That's maybe a word you're not so familiar with, but what renunciation always leads to is contentment. And contentment is something very, very beautiful. And a lot of those things out in the world that pull our senses, like again social media and a lot of other media, it's trying to grab our attention and pull it out of us. And that's something which goes against contentment. It goes down the track of, I need this, and we need more of this, and I need to maintain this. I don't know, probably you never had that thought in your mind when you sat on a bench or were out in nature. You just don't have this idea, I need more sunset. This sunset has to last for longer, or it's just this kind of idea just doesn't really come up in the mind. So renunciation, contentment, and then the opposite of ill will and cruelty, of course, is goodwill towards ourselves, towards other people, and then harmlessness. Harmlessness is something very, very beautiful. If we are harmless people, and other people around us get a feeling of that, or even animals around us get a feeling of that, that relaxes them, that calms them down, and it's something which does the same to our own hearts. So it's basically something we create in our own hearts, in our own minds, and then kind of share it with beings around us. So what that means is basically there is a choice. So we can direct our attention. Even though, of course, some of those things kind of pull at our attention and demand our attention when you go into a shopping center, sometimes when it's nice and calm in the monastery and I have to go shopping or something. It's really amazing how loud the music is, how bright the colors are, how rushed the people are. And these are kind of things that grab your attention. But if you can keep with the peace within your heart, if you cannot kind of just engage with that too much and stay balanced, that is kind of the idea. And then bring your attention to something which is actually useful. So sometimes what I do when I'm in a plane or when I'm in a shopping center or around a lot of people, rather than getting caught up with all the stuff that is happening there, I try to develop something beautiful in my mind that I can kind of project on those other people. I can wish the people well, or I can see someone who is suffering a little bit, not like big time suffering, but I can just offer them a smile. And it's something that we often don't do, because we just don't have the capacity, or we don't really think of it. We are so, in our own world and just running from A to B. Right. So that's maybe a little bit of an introduction there. So we just want to make sure that our hearts don't get excited, that they don't get hot, that they don't get worked up, that they don't get stressed and drained. The opposite of that is that they get cooled, that they get soothed, that they get calmed, that they get nourished. And that's what we hopefully can practice in day-to-day life a little bit by saying no to the things that we realize that create basically disharmony or those kind of mind states that affect our heart. But it's something we practice in meditation. In meditation, the beautiful thing is we do have a sheltered, a protected, and a safe environment. That's something that out there in the world is sometimes a bit difficult. But in meditation, we come together in a room that is hopefully, kind of cool enough, and that is safe, and that is more or less quiet, so it's easier to practice. So we can do some things out in the world as well to, help us with these things, but meditation is quite a controlled environment. And then we can start to work with our five senses in that context. And that's maybe just a little bit more that I'll be telling you now about the meditation, how that works, and then we will actually practice together. Because when we calm the senses, when we settle the senses, then there will actually come a point where we can even let those senses go. If you're out in the world, you have to protect yourself, you have to be alert, and you have to know what's going on. But in meditation, you go inside and you kind of leave the world outside behind. And then you don't really have to worry about your five senses. And you can focus on the sixth sense, on your mind, on your heart, and really feel what's going on in there. And then calm that down as well. Okay, so first one, taste. So when we meditate, of course, we're not eating, so there won't be any excitement to those kind of areas like our mouth and our tongue. There might still be a little bit of saliva in our system, and that will keep being there. But one principle that applies to all the senses is if it stays the same, if it doesn't change, then it doesn't register. So because you are eating and you have lots of different flavors, kind of having a party in your mouth, basically, you are aware of it. But if something stays constant, if it stays the same, it's easy to drop into the background and it's easy to let go. So that's probably the easiest sense in meditation to let go of. But one thing that happens often to people is that they start to feel what's happening inside their bodies, and they start to feel, the saliva flowing or the saliva accumulating in their mouths, and then they feel uncomfortable, and they feel, the people next door, they're going to hear when I swallow, and all these kind of things. So please don't worry about that. If you need to swallow, swallow. If you need to cough, cough, because the longer you hold it, the louder it will become. Ajahn Brahm often says it's like the volcano effect. If you try to keep back your cough, and you try to keep it back, and you just can't, then you have this big explosion, and the people around you really kind of hear it. But if you cough, if there is a little scratch in your throat, just, not too loud, but you just cough a little bit, then it's basically dealt with. And one of the problems is, if we focus on one area a lot, then we tend to tense around that area as well. And that makes everything worse. So please try not to do that. But again, it's not so easy, but just relax and let the saliva flow by itself. When you go asleep, no problem, isn't it? When you watch TV, you never think about your swallowing and your taste buds. And another one is smell, very similar, like the tastes. There's no smells kind of changing in this room. There is a certain amount of smell, but it usually doesn't change unless people pass wind, but that just happens sometimes too. But you can kind of let that kind of go into the background and then let go of that as well. So these two senses are probably pretty easy. Next one is sight, and that's why we close our eyes. And we'll do that in meditation together afterwards. But you will notice that you will still see a little bit once you close your eyes. But again, if it stays constant, it will switch off automatically by itself. It will go black, and then you don't know that you're seeing anymore. Next one is touch, and that's why we do these body scans, where we feel what's happening in the body, where we relax, where we settle, where we calm the body down, and then it becomes just so comfortable and so warm and so kind of heavy even as well, that it is very smooth and very even. And then that one can also be let go of. And then we're just kind of left with the sense of touch, which has to do with the breathing. But even that will drop away at some stage. And then the last one, I'm realizing I've already talked a little while, but that one is one that I wish to focus on some stage, but maybe I do it in another session and give you some tools how to work with hearing in meditation, and also hearing things and not getting caught up in them out in life. But basically, just also a short one there. It is a safety mechanism, and it's the last safety mechanism that we have. Sound always alerts us if something is going on. So when you sleep, what wakes you up? The alarm clock. So there is a reason for that. Sound can kind of reach the deepest into our mind, and so that's why it's the hardest to let go of. But if we feel really safe, if we feel really happy inside, then that will move away from us as well, and will become more calm and more peaceful. And even if there are sounds, I can't give you the whole tool set right now because we don't have the time for it, but even if you can smooth that out somehow, if you can make the sound even, so you don't have this kind of up and down, this loud and quiet. Because that's what the sirens do of the ambulance, for example. Why do they go woo, woo, woo? Because they want our attention. So if we can kind of settle those waves, then that will help it to fade into the background. So if there is a sound like an aircon, now you're probably hearing it because I told you. But because it is constant, it just stays there in the background, and then it's easy to let it go. Okay, anyway, I think I have talked enough. So let's do some meditation and also go a little bit through the senses tonight together, because that's the topic I chose, so that the meditations are a little bit different every time. Alright, so please make yourselves comfortable. I don't know if all the cushions are already taken up, but we put a few cushions out. If you're sitting on a chair, I usually encourage people not to kind of cross their legs, just have them nicely planted on the floor. I often take off my shoes so I can actually feel that I'm grounded. If that's something you would like to do or like to try, you can as well. And then we do close our eyes for meditation. We just allow them to gently shut. If that's something new, you can also leave them slightly open, that's fine. Just let a little bit of light in, especially if you're tired, that can be helpful. But just, in a way that it doesn't draw our attention out. Our attention now is welcomed, is encouraged to go in the opposite direction, to go inwards rather than outwards. And then we can just sit on the chair or on the cushion, on the floor for a little while and start to settle into our bodies. Start to feel our bodies, start to explore our bodies a little bit. And as we do that, we can adjust. So if we feel something is a little bit tight, or something is in the wrong kind of spot, you can move it, you can adjust it, you can scratch, whatever is required. To just make things peaceful, make things calm. And then I'll just run through the 5 senses. So the sense of taste. You might be able to taste the flavor of your saliva. But now basically it's time to give your mouth a break. I have to do a bit of talking, but you don't have to. So you can just find a nice, relaxed way for your tongue, for your mouth, your lips, your jaw to be in. They don't have to work. They don't have to receive any information right now. So it's like a little holiday, like a little break for your mouth and your tongue and your taste buds. Just make sure that that area of your body is just nice and relaxed. Softening your jaw. Maybe feeling your lips, how they are separated or gently touching, just to kind of get in touch with your body. And then the sense of smell doesn't require any of our attention really at this time. So we can maybe also relax that area of our body. Make sure that the air can flow easily if our noses are not blocked because of hay fever or something. Just kind of allowing the nose to have a break, the sense of smell to have a break. And then we can go to our eyes. Just kind of check in with the eyes and see what's going on there. How do they feel? Do you actually see something? It really depends on the light, but you should see a little bit of the light coming through your eyelids. And that's what you are seeing. You're seeing the light and you're seeing your eyelids. But because, again, there is no job to be done, there is no disco lights in this room, it doesn't change. It doesn't need to grab your attention, pull your attention. So you can step away, you can disengage, you can renounce, you can let go. You can relax. Now sometimes the mistake people do, they think I have to watch my body, I have to watch my mind, and the word watch indicates, oh, there is seeing involved, but nothing to do with your eyes. So that means all the muscles in your eye sockets, they basically don't have a job. They're unemployed. They're on holiday. So you can let them relax. You can let them calm down. You can let them smooth out. And instead of seeing, you can just feel, you can perceive with your sense of touch what's going on. And that moves us to this sense of touch, which usually we are used to in our hands. So maybe let's start there. See what our hands are up to. How do they feel? Are they okay? Do they need to be put somewhere else? Do they need to be wiggled a little bit? Please find the optimal way of putting your hands in your lap or on your thighs or whatever. Just find a place for them to rest. They don't need to feel the world outside. And when they get a break, they don't stop feeling right away, but they kind of get tingly, they kind of get warm, they kind of get fuzzy. You might still feel energy there, but it has nothing to do with feeling the world outside. Just feeling the energy, the natural energy of the hands. Whatever is going on there. And then being content with that, being happy with that, allowing it to just be. Now we hopefully have a little bit of a sense how to get in touch with the body. and allowing it to move away from the world outside. And basically just feel what's going on inside the body. And then calming that down. So you can feel your forehead and your whole face. And allow it to calm down. Hang loose. You can feel the head on the top, on the sides, at the back. Maybe you can feel the breathing going in and out, kind of stroking your face. Maybe you can feel the aircon, the movement of the air. It's something very pleasant, actually. Very calming, very soothing. So you can allow that to relax your whole head. Then you can feel your neck. Probably you feel your clothing touching your neck. Make sure it's nice and loose. Or you can feel your shoulders. Allow them to relax. And if they do, you will notice that they will just naturally sag a little bit, open up a little bit. And from there you can extend into your arms. Feel both sides, left and right. Top of the arms, the elbows, the lower part. And then your palms, backs and fingers again. Just resting. Having a break. Feel your chest. Let it open up and relax. So that the lungs and the heart can do their work without any obstruction. No need to hold anything or tense up around anything. We're just having a break, a safe place to be quiet, to let things calm down. And we can feel our spines. Follow them all the way down to the lower back, into the hips, being heavy, warm, but in a comfortable way. allowing the belly to be soft, allowing all the organs to rest and digest in this area. Coming down to our hips, opening up, letting the hips and the buttocks rest on the cushion, the chair. Allowing the joints of the hips to be loose and open, relaxed. And then moving into your legs, feeling the thighs, letting them settle. Feeling your knees, allowing them to rest. Calming your shins and your calves. If you realize they're not quite in the right position, please, you can always adjust your legs kindly, slowly, softly. If you do that, and that's kind of what the body asks you to do, it will thank you for it and will deeply relax afterwards. And then you can feel your ankles. Allow them to settle. Feel your feet. Your toes. And the back of your feet. Again, I can feel the cold air and the floor. Can you feel your socks, your shoes? And then just allow your feet to rest. And if anything pops up during the meditation in your body, which becomes tense or asks your attention, don't get pulled in or carried away, but just gently allow your mind to go there, to relax around it, to make it be at ease and at peace as much as possible. Some things take longer to calm down and settle. That's okay. We can be patient. We don't endure, but we accept and we care. And as your body becomes more and more smooth and even, it's easy to step away. If that's something new, you can do it gently, slowly, just moving away and allowing it to rest even more deeply. Trusting it that it will be fine. And then as these things calm down, you will probably become aware much more than before of maybe some sounds that are around outside your body or inside your body. And your reactions to them, to the sounds or to some bodily feelings that might be still left. See if you can calm your response, calm the mind which perceives it. And you will notice that then the senses will calm down as well. Like the body becomes smooth and even, the sound will become smooth and even. And it might feel like it's far, far away. So that it can fade into the background. This is usually a good time to become aware of the stillness and peace that has arisen, the joy and the relaxation, and to settle on that, or to just gently be aware of your breath, coming in and going out. Peacefully breathing in, calmly breathing out. Peace and calm. Letting the air flow in naturally and letting it flow out naturally again, as it needs to right now. Breathing in peace, breathing out and letting everything calm down. Allowing the senses to rest, body rest, sense of hearing, taking a break. And also our minds. Not having to work, just chilling. Seeing if we can just let everything go, even if it's just for a moment. Nothing to do, nothing to achieve. Just being peaceful. And then as we slowly move back out into the world, we can just ask ourselves, how does it feel inside? What does your heart, your mind feel like? What's the weather in there? Is it really rough and rainy? Or is it clear and bright and calm? How does your body feel? as you're slowly getting back in touch with it. Can you feel some relaxation and ease? Or is there maybe still some tension left, which is okay? Even irritation, whatever it might be. And then we can open up the sense of hearing and allow the meditation bell that I will ring 3 times to slowly bring us back out. And then as we also open our eyes, we can connect to the sense of seeing. Sense of touch as we stretch and wiggle our bodies. Okay, this is probably the best time to get a feel of what I was trying to talk about before. How we perceive things slightly differently when the mind is calm and clear and happy. When you do longer meditation retreats, you will notice that it's like your eyes and your sense of seeing has been kind of washed, and things look bright and shiny, and things, you hear them, they're crisp. I was at a Zen retreat one time, and back in Switzerland, and I didn't really feel that much change during the retreat. But then I came out of retreat and caught the train and got off the train station in Sooth, and where I lived with my flatmates. And I had to walk. I could have taken a bus, but I did walk to our flat that we were sharing together. And I was just going like, wow, there's so many smells everywhere, going past the police station and smelling the flowers there. And that's the one which kind of stayed with me. I don't know what other smells there were, the river, or maybe some kind of food wafting from the window, and it's so fresh, it's so crisp, it's so nice, and you just kind of perceive it and know it. You're not kind of pulled and dragged by it as we are so often with other things out in the world. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Any experiences? That's sometimes also. Sometimes people who haven't meditated before, it's nice to say like, okay, this happened for me, and then usually what I can answer is like, yeah, that's something that happens to so many people. So you don't feel so alone or isolated with an experience you might have had. If anyone wants to share in the group. All good? Yeah. Okay. So, very nice to see so many people. Like, full house. I don't think I've ever had so many people yet. I mean, some of them are groupies, drivers and people who stay at the monastery, and people from the Armadale meditation group that was running for, 30-something years, is that right? And then
34.
Yeah. and then it moved online, and now it's a Tuesday night session on Zoom since COVID. And it hasn't actually... It used to be at the community centre down at the Armadale Hospital, and it never actually kind of came back. But, this is kind of close enough, hopefully, for the Armadalians as well, to come if they want to. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot for coming along, and if you have any personal questions, please feel free. Okay. Take care.